now that you've gone through 550 of the characters out of, about 600, so you have about 50 more to go or so. What are your feelings about how well you're remembering the characters, and what are your feelings about, like, will you continue to try to use this type of method as you go forward in learning characters, beyond our order, in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I love the method. Like, I'm totally into it, and I I actually now, like, I can't even really imagine how you would go about learning a character like another way. Like, I just feel like like this system is just it's really efficient, and like when I first got to China, I was in China for about a year before I took the course, and I was learning Chinese, and I was trying to learn characters, and I purely just by memorization, by
Yeah.
seeing a character and just writing it down, and like I kind of thought I learnt maybe 100, but I didn't really know them. Like I had no idea of the smaller components of the characters,
Mm.
and like when I was trying to write them, like I was like forgetting them, and so like this system has been great for me. Like I feel like I've I think I finished the course maybe three months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I've managed to get through 500 characters, and I'm pretty confident that I could probably write them and then pronounce them correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
I mean, obviously, maybe I'd make a few mistakes, but
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, nobody gets 100% memory on all things. I mean, even with spaced
yeah.
repetition software, you get a 90 to 95% retention rate. But yeah, something I'm curious about then is, and of course, the other thing too is, if I recall, you've been very busy this 3 months as well, right? Like, it's not like you've had all day to study, but you've still managed to get through all of that, right? So, because you're working full time, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the last kind of month and a half, particularly, I've been back at my school teaching full time. So
Right. So if you were to speculate, I mean, obviously you're just guessing, but there was a period of time at the beginning, if I recall, that you had a bit more time, and so you were able to spend more time on it each day. How
yeah.
long do you think it would have taken you to get through everything if, you had still had that same amount of time? Like, if you didn't have to go take on the full-time job, do you think you would have been done in, I don't know, if you were to kind of guess based on your rate of speed at
Is
that
that
time?
like how long do you think it would have taken me to get through like the pack of 600 and so
Yeah, just
characters?
like the 600 characters or so, how long do you think it would have taken you to, like, learn them and come up with your mnemonic devices for them and all of that?
Well, like I'd like to think that, so I've been back at full-time work for a month and a half, and I've only got probably, maybe like 100 characters left. So, I mean, I'd like to think if I wasn't so busy with work, I'd probably be finished the pack. So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, I'm sure you
I
would be.
can't,
I'm sure you would be. Yeah.
I can't remember exactly when I finished the course, like whether it was 2 or 3 months ago,
Yeah,
or
something,
maybe even
something like that.
longer.
Yeah. Wasn't that
Yeah,
long ago though. Yeah, it was pretty
yeah,
recent.
yeah. No, but I mean, like I hit it pretty hard. Like, when I finished the course, like there was like a good 2 months where, like every day I was doing it for, maybe an hour and a half. It was cool. I was flying through characters.
Nice. So then another question I have for you then is, uh, because a lot of people, when they first start to learn about the Hansa movie method, they're like, we're teaching it in class and they have no concept of what it is before we teach it to them, right? So, like,
Mm.
they will naturally have a thought, and it's a completely understandable thought, which is sort of like, I'm learning all this extra stuff to
Mm.
learn Chinese. Like, why am I doing this? Because it seems like it's taking a while. It seems complicated, right? And, obviously we say, well, yeah, sure, it might seem a little complicated while you're learning the method, but once you've done enough characters, you'll kind of get how it works, and you'll know the steps necessary to go from, knowing nothing about the character to memorizing it. How long do you think, how many characters did you think you had to do before you sort of realized how the method works, in the sense of being able to quickly put the ingredients together to come up with a mnemonic device. That is to say, like, you know, maybe the first character you learn, it takes like 10 minutes just to kind of think of everything and put everything together. And, you know, that would obviously be too long if every character was like that. But then eventually, you know, the steps of it, you got used to it. About how many characters do you think you did before you were like, okay, I understand how this works?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, definitely at the beginning, you know, for like the first, I think it was probably like the first 3 weeks that I was doing it. You know, like, I mean, each character did take me, you know, a while. You know, so I would say that after about probably 3 weeks of kind of doing it every day, it definitely got quicker. You know, and then I think after about, you know, maybe weeks, you know, like it gets really fast, you know, whereas, you know, so, you know, the first character that I ever tried to learn using this method probably took me 10 minutes, but, you know, I was just learning, you know, some characters yesterday, and I mean, I would say, you know, probably takes me under, some characters probably take me under a minute now, you know, like it's really fast. And, you know, I mean, obviously, like, I have to put them into, you know, Anki, you know, the remembering software, and revise them, but, you know, it's pretty cool to kind of see like a complex character, and then, you know, like being able to break it down into its smaller components, you know, and do it pretty quickly. So
nice.
Yeah, so I'd say probably about 3 weeks, I think, of doing it every day, and I got my head around it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good thing for people to know, just because, you know, if you do it, you know, for you think 3 weeks of time, okay, well, if there were only say 200 characters to learn in Chinese, like just pretend that Chinese only had 200 characters, right? Well, then yeah, sure, that would probably not be worth going through all this effort to try to figure out the method for doing it. But considering that there's probably about 3,000 characters that you realistically want to learn to be able to read novels and things of that nature, read the newspaper and stuff, you know, having 3 weeks of time to get to a method that helps you to learn a character potentially under a minute, as far as Luke and I have been able to tell, that seems to be well worth it. So that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that that's how your experience has been of it. And so, like, now moving forward, you know, as you continue to go forward, do you feel pretty confident about your, you know, likelihood of success in, you know, becoming literate in Chinese?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm still, you know, far from my goal, but I definitely feel like I've got the materials to succeed, and, you know, and I've got, the most importantly, you know, like an efficient way of, you know, learning this like incredibly, you know, challenging language, but, you know, it's also incredibly interesting language too. So
absolutely,
yeah, and actually, you know, that was something else that, you know, like I wanted to talk about. You know, before I took the course, you know, I was a little bit like overwhelmed as well. Like when you try to start learning like Hansa and characters, it's really overwhelming. It's like, you know, like where do you start? And, you know, the thing I appreciated about the course is that you guys kind of lay out the first, you know, 600 characters, you know, in a way that kind of goes like this, you know, so it kind of gives you direction. And, you know, although I'm almost finished that pack now, you know, I'm fairly confident that when I do finish the pack, you know, I will be able to continue it, you know, at my own pace, you know, learning the characters which I want to learn. Yeah, so it's good.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear it, man. And yeah, you definitely will, because we cover pretty much all of the major character components in the first 600. So, you know, by our method, those are called props. And so basically you've already thought of, you know, these objects that are going to represent the components of the characters. So for the most part, you see any new character that you haven't seen before, you should already have an idea of what that is visually represented as. And of course, all the pinyin, you understand how that works with the actors and the sets and all of that. So really, as long as you know, and you can use any dictionary app to find out what the general meaning of the character is, and then that's all you need. And so, you know, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. And I'm so glad to hear that you got a lot of direction out of the course. And, you know, it's it's a real, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I am honored that anybody would take the time to really work on this stuff and figure out whether or not it works, because we obviously think it works, but it has been largely an experiment up until this point of like us going, okay, we know that these mnemonic systems have worked and we think that we've improved upon previous mnemonic systems, but nonetheless, it is a new product. So it's one of those things that it's great to hear the feedback from somebody to, you know, hear that it's really working for them and they're retaining the information. And, you know, most importantly, you feel confident that moving into the future, you're going to be successful. Because of course, you know, like you said, it is a long language to learn. So it takes a lot of steps, but well worth it. Because if you understand it, man, it's so interesting. It's the most interesting. It's so much more interesting than English to me, because, you know, you've got the essentially 3,000 characters of the alphabet in a way. You could think of it like that. And each one it has an interesting story behind it, and how they interact together to make words is always interesting. So it's a different system. It's a very different system from English, but it's well worth it. And if you go character by character, it's just fun. It's just a fun time.
Yeah.
So awesome, Harrison. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. And as always, if you have any more questions about anything related to Chinese acquisition, you can always get in touch with us. We're always happy to help.